Chapter 31. The Unappeasable Debt in a Community of Chinese Whispers. Call me however what thou wilt. I am who I must be. I call myself Zarathustra. Quote by Friedrich Nietzsche. The humid Bangkok air clung to Sophie and Lee as they navigated the labyrinthine alleys of Chinatown. Armed with a crumpled map and a thirst for adventure, they'd strayed from the tourist trail, lured by the promise of hidden gems. A notification buzzed on Sophie's phone, momentarily shattering the tranquil sounds of the bustling streets. It was a message from Georgina, the urgency evident in the all-caps plea for money. A knot of worry tightened in Sophie's stomach. Why was Georgina suddenly begging for such a small sum in comparison to Georgina's large net worth? Why was she using lawyers and court appearances to intimidate her? Pushing the concern aside for now, Sophie knew there was nothing she could do until her return. She pocketed her phone, focusing on the vibrant chaos around her. Are you sure we're going the right way? Lee chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. This map looks like it went through the washing machine twice. Sophie, ever the optimist, grinned. Getting lost can be the best way to find something unexpected. Besides, there's something quite charming about these little alleys. Indeed, the narrow streets were a vibrant tapestry of sights and smells. Colorful flags fluttered above overflowing stalls, tempting aromas of street food mingled with the musky scent of incense, and the rhythmic chatter of locals filled the air. Lee, a sucker for a good massage, couldn't resist stopping at a small shop with a sign that promised traditional Thai massage deep relaxation. After a blissful hour of expert kneading and stretching, he emerged rejuvenated, a satisfied grin plastered on his face. Wow, Sophie, that was incredible. You have to try it next. Sophie, meanwhile, had been drawn to a different kind of shop. Through the dusty window, she could see shelves overflowing with jars filled with dried herbs and roots. Curiosity piqued. She stepped inside. An elderly woman with kind eyes and a warm smile greeted them in broken English. Sophie, ever the entrepreneur, explained their interest in the local herbs and their potential medicinal uses. Ah, the woman exclaimed, her eyes twinkling. You seek Kaempferia galanga, perhaps? Good for circulation, you see? She led Sophie through the shelves, explaining the properties of each herb with a practiced ease. Lee, having finished his massage, wandered in, drawn by the fragrant aroma. He spotted a display of intricately carved wooden statues depicting figures in meditation poses. Wow, these are beautiful, he remarked, picking up a small elephant statue. Do you know anything about the spiritual practices here? The woman's smile widened. This, she said, pointing to a statue depicting a lotus flower, is a symbol of enlightenment. We believe in the journey of self-discovery, of finding peace within. As the afternoon sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow on the bustling street, Sophie and Lee emerged from the shop, their hands full of treasures. Her bag of dreams was filled with carefully chosen herbs and a notebook bursting with new knowledge. Lee held a small wooded elephant place mat and a newfound appreciation for the spiritual side of Thai culture. They may have gotten lost, but they had found something far richer. A hidden gem in the heart of Bangkok, a place where ancient knowledge intertwined with the vibrant chaos of the city. Well, that was an adventure, Lee admitted, linking his arm with Sophie's. Who knew a wrong turn could lead to such amazing discoveries? Sophie smiled, the thrill of the unexpected coursing through her veins. This is exactly what I needed, Lee. Not just the herbs, but the reminder that there's so much to learn about international markets, so many cultures to explore. It had been more than just a sightseeing and market research trip through Bangkok's labyrinthine streets. It had been a testament to the power of getting lost, of embracing the unexpected, and of finding connection with a culture, with each other, and with themselves. As they walked hand in hand towards the glittering lights of the city center, Bangkok's vibrant energy seemed to hum around them, a symphony of possibilities waiting to be explored. Back at their luxurious hotel room, Sophie finally addressed the nagging worry about Georgina's message. She confided in Khan, outlining her concerns. Khan, ever the strategist, suggested they postpone their worry until their return. He had already spoken with Calvin and arranged a coffee meeting with him and Chief Evelyn in Khan's garden upon their return. They would deal with Georgina's mess then. For now, Sophie decided to focus on the present, on the exhilarating discoveries of Bangkok and the exciting possibilities that lay ahead. She slipped the phone under her pillow, the worries momentarily forgotten as she drifted off to sleep, the sounds of the bustling city a lullaby in her. The midday sun slanted through the dusty windowpanes of Sophie's studio, casting long shadows across the cluttered workbench. It had been 4 weeks since her whirlwind trip to Bangkok, and a mountain of tasks still awaited her attention. With a sigh, Sophie reached for her phone, the nagging worry about Georgina clawing at the edges of her mind. Lunchtime. She dimmed the overhead lights, letting the familiar glow of her computer screen become the room's focal point. A 90s playlist, a comforting blast from the past, filled the air as she wrestled with the lingering issue. Upon returning from Thailand, Sophie had promptly settled Georgina's outstanding debt. A receipt, a flimsy shield against future manipulation, sat tucked away in a drawer. Yet, a more significant concern gnawed at her. The contract Georgina's financial department had refused to return it. It felt like a ticking time bomb, a weapon Georgina might wield at a later date. 4 weeks had passed, a period of relative peace. As optimism bloomed, a harsh reality check hit. Khan, her trusted confidant, had relayed Chinese whispers. There were several negative stories circulating about Sophie that were fabricated by Georgina's flying monkeys. Sophie's initial annoyance morphed into a weary acceptance. She'd addressed each fabricated story head-on when confronted by Khan authenticness and watchful gaze, her honesty a stark contrast to the gossip. This irony wasn't lost on her. Becoming a Sigma personality, a self-protective shield, had been a necessary transformation. Before, her well-meaning, empathetic nature had seen her extend a helping hand to all and sundry, often at her own expense. Now, her focus was laser-sharp, directed towards those who reciprocated her positive energy and the promise of long-term partnerships. A memory flickered, a quote from Jason, her second husband, echoing through the years. "Your problem is you help people that do not want to be helped." The memory stung, but it also held a seed of truth. Was her desire to authentically help others always a positive force? Sophie wasn't sure. Helping others still held a powerful allure, but the Sigma nature she'd adopted offered a stark realization. With Sophie aging years, she had a daily reminder that her energy, both physical and spiritual, was a finite resource. She needed to be discerning, to invest it in those who truly appreciated it, in those who would create a network of mutual support and growth. The rhythmic hum of the 90s playlist faded into the background as Sophie settled into her meditation. As the track switched to "Ode to My Family" by the Cranberries, Sophie closed her eyes. The image of Fred's Saturday night celebration refused to budge. The memory of the community gathering, a supposed haven of positive energy, now felt tainted. Memories of the event unfolded like a movie reel. The early arrival to assess the lay of the land, the careful navigation around the Georgina contingent stationed near the bar. There had been a forced lightness in Sophie's initial social interactions, all while gauging the atmosphere. Relief had washed over her upon reaching Khan, his presence a familiar island of calm. They'd exchanged observations, a shared recognition of the shifting mood in the community, a growing awareness of Georgina's manipulative tactics. A pang of disappointment stabbed at her. Sophie had naively hoped that settling the debt would signal an end to the drama. But the echo of Khan's recent confrontation with one of Georgina's minions resonated in her mind. Khan's booming voice, though raw with anger, had held a kernel of truth. These were people who thrived on negativity, with no focus on self-improvement or positive social contribution. Their need to point fingers stemmed from their own emptiness. With a sharp inhale, Sophie snapped back to reality. The mountain of tasks in her studio wouldn't disappear with introspection alone. She grabbed her phone, the reminder blinking on the screen, the tax office. Registering her app, a crucial step in launching her business, needed to be tackled first. Pushing aside the lingering thoughts of Georgina and her flying monkeys, Sophie rose with renewed purpose. There was work to be done, a future to build. Focusing on the present, on the positive people and actions she could control, was her new mantra. The Sigma shield might remain, but beneath it, a flicker of hope remained. Hope for a community that would recognize negativity for what it was. Hope for a business built on integrity. And hope for a future free from the toxic shadows of the past. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cluttered samples on the workbench in Sophie's studio. The air buzzed with the rhythmic hum of her computer, a familiar soundtrack to her focused work. Yet, beneath the surface, a quiet unease simmered. 9 months had passed since Lee and Sophie's first date under a supermoon, and now a pivotal moment loomed on the horizon, the arrival of Lee's parents for a visit, an important cultural moment for Lee. A pang of self-doubt flickered. Was their whirlwind understanding, fueled by shared adventures and exotic escapes, ready for the scrutiny of parental judgment? Lee, once a source of unwavering optimism, now mirrored Sophie's own anxieties. "This whole thing is a mess, Sophie," he sighed. "My parents are traditional. They wouldn't understand your lifestyle, your age, or your—" He trailed off, leaving the unspoken implication of Sophie's own family hanging heavy in the air. "They will hate you," Lee finally sighed. The knot of worry in Sophie's stomach tightened. Lee's lack of support felt like a betrayal, adding another layer of uncertainty to the upcoming visit. Recent community events and Chinese whispers had cast a shadow over their usual harmonious relationship, followed by a series of harsh text messages exchanged between them the night before had left a bitter taste in their mouths. It all started with a seemingly mundane task: splitting the monthly bills. Lee, $3D 600 rent plus $170 power plus $150 gas plus $80 TV equals $4,000. Please advise how much you are going to share. Sophie, caught up in her workflow, sent a quick response. "Sophie, we can discuss it once your behavior changes. Slamming doors and sleeping alone is a little humorous, but not good to discuss important things and make clear decisions. A balanced mind and polite discussions is the long-term way for understanding and balance." Lee's frustration simmered. "Lee, sorry. You should change your behavior, not me. Do you think we have time to talk? You don't wake up till 10 a.m. every day and don't come back till 11 p.m. What's the point? Yesterday you're talking about the marriage with Massimo. For me, it's really funny, okay? In my opinion, you're not ready for a husband and a family if you play the role like who you are so far. Sorry, don't talk about that. It's really ridiculous for me." Sophie, stung by his accusation, fired back. "Sophie, I'm happy that you are thinking about both our perspectives and both our goals. Take time to see if they align. If not, then it's a problem to resolve. Whatever direction we take, make sure it's from a point of long-term alignment. But I believe in the end we are both good people and will go through this part of disbelief with grace and gentlemanliness." Lee felt his anger escalate. "Lee, I try my best to support you and stand on side, even when 99% of people come to me and make bad comments about you. But now it seems some of your behavior is happening and proves what they said." Sophie, confused and hurt, demanded clarification. "Sophie, what kind of behavior am I doing that proves them right? Can you explain to me so I can improve myself? Maybe this is the reason for your recent negative energy and bad words to me." Lee, caught in the heat of the moment, refused to elaborate. "Lee, everything I told you many times. I am not going to talk anymore." Sophie, frustrated by the lack of communication, pressed on. "Sophie, give me one now." Lee, feeling defensive, deflected her request. "Lee, my negative is coming from you, not anybody else. Because I feel maybe I bet wrong. I bet we could better each other, but not really at all." Sophie, saddened by his statement, offered a solution, a tentative step back from the precipice. "Sophie, which negative is coming from me that you are focusing on so much? Maybe it would be better for me to live in my place while your parents visit and see if that focus goes on to your own focus and direction that makes you happy. Maybe you are too focused on my lifestyle, which is totally different from yours. Maybe I don't know. If I were to search for you in a dictionary, it would say very normal, but in reality, Lee, you are not easy to understand. But I am surprised at last night's negative energy from you. I tried to ignore it and busy myself with my own thing. It's okay, I can tolerate it, but I am surprised for someone with your self-awareness. And then blame your mood on me. It's a red flag." Lee's response was simply good, and then a heavy silence. The air crackled with unspoken hurt, a stark contrast to the carefree days of their whirlwind romance. The arrival of Lee's parents felt less like a celebration and more like a looming deadline that highlighted the growing distance between them. One evening, as the city lights began to twinkle outside their window, Lee, his eyes filled with regret, gently nudged her away from the computer screen. "Come on, Sophie," he coaxed, his voice laced with a newfound vulnerability. "Let's take a walk. We haven't had a real conversation in days." His words pierced through her self-imposed isolation. The air hung heavy, thick with the weight of their argument and the unspoken truth their relationship was at a crossroads. Sophie rose, her movements slow and deliberate. Outside, the cool night air offered a welcome change. They walked in silence, the rhythmic click of their shoes against the pavement, the only sound breaking the stillness. Finally, Lee spoke, his voice hoarse. Maybe you're right, Sophie, he admitted. Maybe some space would be good for both of us, especially before my parents come. The words hung in the air, a stark acknowledgement of the fragile state of their relationship. Sophie stopped, turning to face him. The moonlight cast long shadows, highlighting the worry lines etched on Lee's forehead. There was a flicker of the old Lee in his eyes, the one who had gotten lost with her in Bangkok, but it was overshadowed by a weariness that mirrored her own. Maybe, she conceded, her voice barely a whisper. Neither of them wanted to say it, but the truth loomed large. This space might not be temporary. They continued walking, a silent couple adrift in a sea of uncertainty. The path ahead was unclear, shrouded in the fog of doubt. Lee's parents' visit, once a source of excitement, now felt like a distant echo. As they reached the late-night BBQ table, Sophie sat down, her gaze fixed on the glittering cityscape. Lee sat opposite her, his hand hovering awkwardly in the air before settling on the backrest. Neither of them reached for the other, a physical manifestation of the emotional chasm that had opened between them. "Do you think?" Lee began, his voice trailing off. Sophie knew what he was going to ask. "Do we have a future?" The answer, at this moment, remained elusive. "I don't know, Lee," she said honestly. "Right now, all I know is that we need to figure ourselves out. And maybe, just maybe, somewhere down the line, our paths will cross again." A single tear escaped Sophie's eye, tracing a glistening path down her cheek. Lee didn't try to wipe it away, a silent acknowledgement of the pain they were both experiencing. The walk ended without any promises, without any grand declarations of love. There was only a heavy silence, a shared understanding that their relationship, for now, was on hold. As they returned home, the weight of the unspoken hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of the fragile beauty and harsh reality of love. Thank you for immersing yourself in this chapter of The Bag of Dreams by Paul Jolley. I hope you enjoy the other chapters and can offer support with this creative work of self-discovery, empathy, and understanding. Just a reminder, this is a work of fiction, while the author may have drawn inspiration from various sources. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is entirely improbable to a factor of 2 to the power of 276, 709 to 1 against, and suggests filing legal complaints to Marvin at the Complaints Department of the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation. Disclaimer: according to the Hitchhiker's Guide, Marvin is smart. He's also very annoying. He knows both of these things, and they bother him, but he cannot change either one. Marvin is the coworker you avoid until you absolutely need help with something.